Happy New Year! To get things started off with a bang, how about a song? Like a bridge over troubled waters. I'm sorry, I can't pull this off. Instead, let's rail. Well, hey, rail fans, welcome back to the hobby room to the Brown Smith Railroad, where today we're going to take a look at how I built this wooden trestle bridge back here. And right out of the chute, I'm going to tell you, it looks really good if you don't look too close. That's just how I rail, people. You know, let me ask you a question. How do you eat an elephant? You in the back. What? That's right. You eat it one bite at a time. Here's why I'm saying this. I've been staring at this thing for months, trying to figure out how I'm going to build this thing. And I didn't have like a complete plan in my head. I looked at some prototypes, some examples. I even had dreams about it. And I finally just decided to do what I've been advising you guys to do for years. And that is, I just shoved off. Started cutting wood, gluing it together to see what happens. And so I'm going to take you through that process right now. To set things up, I got this Titebond wood glue, a paper plate, some skewers. I put down some parchment paper so the pieces wouldn't stick when I glued them together. And then I used my new chomper. I had to replace this because I can't find the old one. And then, of course, I bought a whole bunch of scale lumber. I'll show you that in just a minute. Now, this is what I started off with. I've got my upper bridge, quote unquote, in the back, and my lower bridge in the front, all supported by styrofoam, just so I could run my trains and have a good time. But all that had to come out. Matter of fact, I shut down my DCC altogether. So to get started, I left the rail joiners in such a way where I could just pull them apart and pull out the track to build these bridges. Something to keep in mind as we move forward. There's two bridges that are going in here. There's the one in the back, the wooden bridge we're going to take a look at in this video. Then I'm going to have something different, I don't know, baby, in the front. Just a little sidebar, when I finished building this one in the back, I showed it to my wife, Cindy Brown, the first lady of model railroading, and I said, hey, look, it's my new hillbilly bridge. And she said, why are you calling it the hillbilly bridge? Because if you remember, on my previous layout, I built a bridge that was so badly built that the story was, it was built by a bunch of drunken hillbillies. I said, well, it's the new hillbilly bridge. And she goes, no, it looks too good. Call it something else. So the first thing I did, just to double check myself, is I took a piece of track and I put my scale ruler on it to just confirm the width of the railroad ties. Listen, it's been a while since I've done something like this, okay? And I just want to make sure I wasn't honking it up. So I measured out, it came out to like 9.5 feet. Then I pulled out my scale lumber. Now an HO scale, this says it's 4 inches by 6 inches. Truthfully, once I measured it, it was 9 inches by 12 inches, 9 by 12, which I figure is pretty good for what we're doing on this model. So for no particular reason, I decided to make the top of this bridge 11 scale feet wide. And so what I did is I set a backstop on my chomper at 11 scale feet. This way I can slide a piece of wood in and go chomp, chomp, chomp and get a bunch of pieces all the same length, more or less. It's not an exact science. As you'll see as we move forward, a lot of this is eyeball. And if this was a space shuttle, it would not make it out of the atmosphere. By the way, something to keep in mind is even if you measure it, what you think is perfect, it's a good idea to take a chomp and then measure the piece again, like you see me doing here. I thought I had it at 11 scale feet and it came in less than that. Now, not a planet killer, but when I start cutting corners on construction, it starts going wonky way down the line, which you're going to see happens anyway. But I checked it, adjusted the backstop, slid a piece in, chomped a bunch more pieces, and then just kept going. So like I said before, I just shoved off on this deal. I took one of those 11-foot pieces, and then I took another piece, just full length. It's 11 inches in human scale, normal scale, and glued it to it and got it centered. Now, what I want to do is figure out the overall height of the bridge, put a piece at the bottom that's consistent. I use 20 feet, and then splay out the pieces like this on their way down and use that as a template for the rest of them. We'll see how it develops as we move forward. Okay, here's another sidebar. I eyeball most of this, and like I said, that's gonna play out. The further along you get in the project, the more eyeballing screws you over. Okay, it's true. It happened to me. It's gonna happen to you. But at the initial point, I take some of the squares that come with the chomper, line them up and try to cheat the pieces over so they at least look square. It's not always right, and I gotta do a lot. The further I go, the more custom the pieces have to become, but at least starting off, let's build a great foundation. I'm using wood glue to put this thing together. And now in the past I've used white glue, which is cool and all. The problem with white glue is you subject it to water, it reactivates the glue, and boom! the bridge blows up. Not what I'm looking for. I've also used super glue in the past, and that's kind of cool. It bonds pretty quick. Problem is, I don't know if I want to stain this or paint this later. If I use super glue and I stain it later, you're gonna see where the glue kind of got on the wood. So I decided to go with wood glue. Problem with wood glue is sometimes it blobs out. You get little blobs of it, right? And I know it's in scale and it's back in the back of the railroad. I don't want you to see that. So you'll see me as we go forward. I use one of my skewers and I wipe the glue off, the excess glue, and then just let that dry. So you can see after the centerpiece is glued on, I just went through and I glued a piece on the edge of the 11-foot piece and the edge of the 12-foot piece to give it that sort of triangular shape that is structurally sound. Now, I don't know if these measurements, these angles are exactly engineerically correct, but they fit on my railroad and that works for me. Once that was done, then I just went through and glued pieces between those. And again, I know I keep saying this, but I eyeballed this, all right? I had to get this done. So I used my eyeballs, glued it in. And the good news is though, by the time we get to the end, the bridge is gonna look a little wonky. That's because I eyeballed it, but it also makes it look more realistic in my opinion. We'll see when we get there. Once I had all those pieces on there, I went through and just to hold them in place, I put a bottle of rubbing alcohol on both ends because that's what I had lying around, just to make sure they made good contact. After that, I decided I was going to measure off 10 scale feet on a side and put a cross member in. Now, again, truth be told, some kind of way I honked it up on a couple of the pieces, and a couple of them I just broke them off and redid it. And another one I was like, I don't care anymore. It looks good to me. So I glued those pieces on and they're a little wide, okay, but that's on purpose. I didn't need to make it exact. What I'll do, and you'll see, is I'll go through with my nippers and just nip those little pieces off. Then I'll take my brand new files I have. I'm gonna file that smooth. Matter of fact, I'm gonna file a lot of this smooth to cover the regular guy imperfections. Now for the challenging part, I had to take two of these pieces and glue them together into like a single column, I guess I'll call it. And I'm not gonna show you everything that I did, but it took many tries to figure out a way to do this where it was square and the right size and plumb and all that. So, but here's what I will tell you. I ended up just gluing pieces to one side and then making that a right angle and just holding it there. Then I put the other piece on and made it a right angle and held it there. After that, I put pieces on the top, and then after that, I kind of went like this until I eyeballed it to be relatively square. Now, you're also going to see as we move forward, I had to use cross bracing, scaffolding, all kinds of crap to keep this thing square. But that's just part of the fun of doing what I'm doing right now. this is what it looked like once I put all those cross pieces on. And you know, the truth, it's kind of square. I'm kind of impressed with myself, if I may say so myself. But after this, we got to put some bracing in. Now, truthfully, I could put this in the model right now, on the railroad right now, and the train wouldn't even know. But it didn't look right, does it? So let's get some cross bracing cut and glued in. It'd be difficult to clean any excess glue off the steel. So again, I used the skewers to put a little bit of glue on the end, and to fish this piece in behind the cross bracing, I had to use my tweezers, which you may or may not see me do a lot of, but trust me, I use my tweezers quite a bit because my fingers are too fat and kept knocking all the pieces out of the way. I suppose I could have just let a piece dry and then keep going, but that means a 20-hour project would be an 80-hour project. Who's got that kind of time, people? Let's move on. And there you go. Those are my two main towers sitting there in the middle. And then I built some shorter ones. Now, something I want you to know. I'm building these too tall on purpose, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some terrain down here and put some terrain over here, and I can just take my nippers and nip off the legs and get rid of it. Now, some might think that's a waste of time, but in my case, this is how my brain works. All right, I know I've got 8.5 inches from the top of the track down to the plywood, and I guess I could try to calc that out some kind of way. Man, I don't know, this is too much work, dude. I'm tired when I get home from work. So that's my plan for it. You'll see me, not in this video, next video. Once we get the scenery in, I'll cut those legs off where I need to and try to fit it in to look real good. Okay, now down to the tricky part. I want to put a deck on top of these, right? Otherwise it's not a bridge. So I glued 3 pieces of the scale lumber down to the top. And rather than narrating all the way through it, just to sort of watch what I did here. Taking that, flipping it upside down, taping it down, pressing it down, trying to get this flat. Those extraneous pieces of wood you see there are me gluing in, these are the scaffolding pieces I was talking about earlier. I was having a hard time keeping it square this way and this way, so I lined it up and just glued some pieces of wood in temporarily to hold it in shape. But now here's the thing. I'm not worried about it being perfect, right? This bridge is like 80 years old. It was thrown together and is still standing, by the way. So if you're doing this kind of thing, it's up to you whether you want to go to the nth degree and making it perfect. In my case, I kind of like the slop a little bit. It kind of gives it a deeper dimension. So once I got the main pieces glued up to the deck, I decided to go ahead and put the abutments in at the end. And I did this by taking some of the same scale lumber and building a little rectangle, and then using some of the 4x4 pieces I had to glue in behind it as a retaining wall on both ends. Not exactly certain if all that scale and all that stuff works for prototype, but it's my railroad and I like it. Deal with it. Well, there you go. That is the bridge as it stands. Now, of course, I've got to paint it and weather it, put the track on it, and set it in the scene. But so far, I got to tell you, I think it looks pretty good if you don't look too close. Now, listen, that's not a cop-out, okay? It looks pretty good if you don't look too close. Not a cop-out. I know there are people that can 3D print these. I know you can buy these online, kits that'll do this. I know there are master model builders that can precisely cut and assemble something like this with their eyes closed and will look amazing. The problem is, I'm not one of those guys. I'm just a regular guy. And again, back to the elephant and eating it one bite at a time. I've been looking at this for months and racking my brain on how to construct this. I didn't know. Not only that, there's the added pressure of putting it on a video, because there's going to be people out there that are like, oh, that's stupid, or you're an idiot, or yeah, it doesn't look like that in the real world. And so I finally decided to do something I've been advising you guys to do for years, and that is I just shoved off. I don't care. It's my railroad. I want it to look good for me when it's done. Not only that, it's in the back of the railroad. So, okay, that's not an excuse. It's just a thing. But here's the thing. Some of these tasks are daunting, right? A lot of little pieces you glue together. I don't know, I've got 500 pieces back there. And I almost think that could be an illustration for life. If you'll forgive me, it's 2025, I'm gonna go here. If there's a goal that you have, something you want to achieve, a big model railroad, a small one, scratch building a bridge, or maybe something outside the hobby room. The goal may seem like it's way out there. What you got to do is you got to take it one bite at a time. Some of you know I've written a couple of sci-fi novels that are available on Amazon right now. I'd never written books before, and they're 400 pages. So how do you do that? You do it a little bit every day. I did an hour and a half every day working on my books, and now they're published, and I'm very excited about that. I'm not trying to say my books right now. I'm just trying to say, at my age, you start thinking about goals that you haven't reached yet, and how do I get it now? Because look where I'm at. And if there's one illustration model railroading will give me for life, and that is you can take nothing and a dream and just eat it one bite at a time until you have your pike. You have what you want. Is it perfect in everybody's eyes? Maybe not. Is it perfect in yours? That's all I give a shit about, is whether you dig what you did or not. That's why we do this, right? So anyway, sorry to get preachy. It's 2025 and I feel a little emotional right now. So thanks a ton for joining me here in the hobby room today at It's My Railroad. I hope all the best for you in 2025. Until I see you in the next video, my name is Steve Brown. Rail on, my friends.